This is the Digital Trust Podcast. In every episode, we strive to bring support to those of you who serve on the front lines and in the trenches of data and technology. We endeavor to bring understanding to the under-resourced and underappreciated, help remove your stress, and provide relief to your pain. Welcome to the Digital Trust Podcast. Sit down with us as we give you hard-hitting advisory conversations to help you build digital trust with your stakeholders and clients, and actionable takeaways to help you become a digitally trustworthy organization.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last episode of the Digital Trust Podcast in 2024. My name is Christian. I am your host, and with us is Bryan Lee, our very first guest on the show ever, and the Christmas guest happens to be the Christmas guest. And I want to wish everyone a happy new year, and especially you, Bryan. Welcome to the show. Happy New Year to you.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking forward to the new year. Thanks for having me back.
By the way, I have to point out your pocket square. It's very fitting for the season.
That's right. Silver. That's right. Got it all figured out.
It's lovely. So I just have one or two questions for you here. This will hopefully just be a mini episode as well, and we'll have everybody back to relaxing and eating their leftovers over the holidays. What can we expect in terms of data privacy, data governance, and regulation in 2025?
Well, I don't want to give any, I used to work in the military and I was an intelligence analyst and I used to do forecasting. And I learned that it's better to give broad brushstroke forecasts rather than specific. So I'll stick with that kind of idea. And I think all of us can agree, broad brushstroke wise, we can expect in next year, 2025, more regulation, right? We've already had kind of up to here with respect to data privacy. There's an endless appetite for more regulation. So I expect to see much more of that. Specifically in the United States, we're going to see more states adopt comprehensive regulation. And some of the countries that are out there that have privacy regulation, they're going to start moving harder on enforcement. So you're going to start hearing countries like China or Brazil or something like that. You're going to hear those countries' names in the news more with respect to regulation. That's one thing. Another trend I think everyone can agree with will be increased use of artificial intelligence, specifically the generative artificial intelligence. These are the things like the ChatGPTs or the Claudes. We're going to see more of that, but I think we're also going to begin to see companies finally figuring out what they're going to do with that kind of stuff, right? So rather than using ChatGPT to write that family Christmas poem, we might actually see people using ChatGPT to do some kind of business purpose, and that'll begin to percolate, I think, through the business press.
Before you get into the last thing, Bryan, my hope and my prayer with generative AI is that folks start using their own critical thinking and creativity, and start with that.
Yeah, good point. Absolutely, very, very critical. And we should use it as a stool and not a crutch.
Amen. All right, back to you. You have more to say about the general predictions.
One more thing. The general prediction, right? Broad brushstroke. The consumer empowerment idea. So the privacy community, and I'm one of them, has been advocating for this for a long time, that, the data that companies have is your data. It's not their data. And therefore, you should have some ability, have say-so over it. That idea is finally really taking hold, not just in the kind of written legislation, but you're beginning to see some enforcement on that. And you're seeing significant movements, particularly in Canada now with this data portability requirement. So I think we're going to see more of that consumer empowerment with respect to data over the next year.
Yeah, I would agree. So how would you advise companies to navigate these waters that you're laying out there? And how can they become more digitally trustworthy given the environment we can expect?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's always, I think in terms of threes, right? So the first one is the standard thing: people's, processes, and technologies. So people, the laws all require you to have someone who's responsible for this. A lot of companies just don't do that. They're very, very basic, right? But you should have someone in your company who kind of has the ball for these kind of issues. Even if you're not doing heavy business to consumer kind of marketing or anything like that, you should have someone you can be able to turn to who kind of keeps an eye on the regulatory space for you, It pays attention to where AI is being used and can key you in if there's going to be major changes in your company with respect to some of these laws. In terms of process, you should have some kind of data governance in place, right? And process, that just means you as a company have sat down, you've looked at this issue, and you've just written something down that says, this is generally our approach to this problem. That's the next thing you want to have. Have a process in place. And the last thing, consider the use of technologies to make it a little bit easier. And by technology, it could be something as simple as just having a suite of websites you like to visit routinely to get good information. You can also move into some of the more advanced space, depending on how big your company is, with tools that can help you with things like data mapping or security monitoring, these kind of things. So always think in terms of those three things. People, do I have the right people in place? Processes, do I have the right things written down and working? And do I have a technology tool that can kind of help make it easier for me?
Very well summed up, Bryan. And with that note, we will start off the new year of 2025. Thank you so much for being our guest today, Bryan, on the mini episode of the new year. Thank you so much to our viewers and listeners as well for joining us and being part of this conversation. And we'll see you in a few weeks.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Thanks for joining us today on the Digital Trust Podcast. If you found this conversation helpful, please share it with someone you care about. And if you'd like to receive our monthly newsletter, please click the link in the description to subscribe. And to put your mind at ease, our newsletter will include episode summaries with key points and actionable takeaways, plus a heads up on the upcoming episode guests. Rest assured, it won't be a spammy sales message, and we will never sell or share your information. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode.